The reception hall glowed the way expensive places do when they want joy to feel inevitable. Soft gold lights, polished floors, champagne flutes catching reflections like promises. Laughter rose and fell in practiced waves. My dress fit perfectly. The band played the song my fiancé and I had chosen after weeks of small arguments and late-night compromises that felt like love. My name is Avery Collins. I'm 28 years old. I stood at the edge of the dance floor, bouquet abandoned on a chair, listening to my maid of honor talk about how we met, how we fought, how we learned each other's edges. Her voice shook a little when she mentioned the night Derek and I stayed up until dawn planning a future that felt solid, specific. I smiled at the right moments. I breathed in the smell of flowers and warm food and the faint metallic tang of anticipation. I have always been the reasonable one. The one who keeps things smooth. The one who doesn't interrupt joy, even when it isn't equally shared. She grabbed the microphone from my maid of honor. Not gently. Not apologetically. Like it had been waiting for her hand all along. I have news too, she said, her voice bright, sharpened with delight. Derek proposed and we're leaving for Bali tomorrow. Bali. My honeymoon. My tickets. The word moved through the room like a dropped glass. Everyone heard it, no one quite knew how to react. A few people laughed, uncertain. Someone clapped, then stopped. I felt the air shift, the way it does right before a storm you weren't told to expect. I didn't look at Derek. I didn't look at her. I looked at my mother. She was smiling. Not surprised. Not confused. Smiling like someone watching a plan click into place. The smile she used when she'd helped choose the venue, when she'd adjusted the guest list, when she told me to be flexible because weddings were stressful for everyone. I remembered her sitting at my kitchen table months earlier, flipping through printed itineraries saying, "It's such a waste to let those tickets go unused if plans change." I remembered nodding because at the time nothing had changed. I've always been the reasonable one. The one who understands logistics. The one who doesn't confuse feelings with facts. Applause eventually arrived, scattered and thin. She hugged Derek like the night belonged to her now. He laughed, overwhelmed, the way people do when they're being carried by momentum instead of choice. The band found a new song. Glasses refilled themselves. No one asked me anything. I didn't make a scene. I didn't cry. I didn't grab the microphone back. I stood there, hands folded, letting the noise pass through me like water around a stone. Inside, something quiet and exact settled into place. I watched my mother lean in to whisper something to her. I watched my sister, because yes, it was my sister, tilt her head victorious, already imagining palm trees and white sand she hadn't paid for. I watched Derek look relieved that no one was yelling. That night blurred politely. Hugs. Congratulations that didn't belong to me. Someone said, "At least you'll have stories," like that was a currency I'd asked for. When the last song ended and the lights softened, I went to the bathroom and pressed my palms to the cool marble sink until my breathing evened out. I left without goodbyes. Outside, the air was cool and smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet. I sat in the car and stared at the steering wheel, noticing how my hands didn't shake. I wasn't numb. I was focused. At home, I opened my laptop and pulled up the flight confirmations. The hotel reservations. The excursions Derek and I had chosen after reading reviews like vows. Everything was there. My name. My card. My points. My email. I closed the laptop. I didn't sleep much. Not because I was spiraling but because my mind was arranging things in a line. Options. Consequences. I packed my bag at dawn with the efficiency I use when emotions are loud and time is short. At the airport the next morning, the terminal smelled like coffee and floor polish and departure. The check-in counters glowed blue and white, orderly and indifferent. I joined the line and waited my turn, listening to announcements echo through the high ceiling. I was still the reasonable one. I was calm. I was prepared. And when I reached the counter, handed over my passport and said my name, the screen in front of the agent flickered, then froze. Her eyebrows lifted. Just slightly. "What's going on?" someone behind me asked. I watched the agent's smile tighten as she read, then looked up at me again. And that was the moment the night truly ended. And something else began. The agent's fingers hovered over the keyboard longer than necessary. The terminal beeped softly, impatient. Around us, the airport breathed, rollers clicking over tile, a baby crying somewhere near security, the low, constant murmur of people leaving places they'd already decided to miss. "I'm just going to double-check something," she said, her tone careful. Behind me the line shifted. Someone sighed. I stepped slightly to the side so the agent could angle the screen away, the blue glow reflecting faintly off the counter's metal edge. The smell of coffee drifted over from a nearby kiosk, bitter and grounding. I've always been the reasonable one. The one who waits. The one who doesn't assume malice when inconvenience will do. She looked up again. "This booking was changed last night." "Changed how?" I asked. She tilted the screen toward me just enough for the details to come into focus. Names. Seats. Dates. My return flight still there. My outbound, gone. Replaced. My sister's name where mine had been. Derek listed as her companion. Honeymoon suite upgraded. Notes added in a familiar tone I recognized from emails my mother sent when she wanted something handled quickly. I felt the last piece settle. "Who authorized the change?" I asked. The agent clicked again. "It was done through the original payment account. Verified. My card. My points. My purchase." A memory drifted in without warning. My mother at the kitchen counter years ago, telling me how proud she was of my organization, how she wished she'd been as responsible at my age. The praise had always come paired with access. I nodded once. "Thank you." She hesitated. "Would you like me to reverse it?" The question hung there, deceptively simple. Behind me, a familiar voice cut through the noise. "There you are." I didn't turn immediately. I didn't need to. I knew the cadence of my sister's voice when she was performing relief. I knew the way my mother cleared her throat before stepping in. "You made it," my sister said brightly, appearing at my side with Derek half a step behind her. She was already dressed for travel, linen pants, oversized sunglasses perched on her head. Derek looked tired, excited, hidden. All at once. My mother arrived last, breathless, carrying herself like this was all slightly inconvenient but ultimately under control. "We thought you'd already gone through," she said, smiling. "Everything sorted?" The agent glanced between us, her professionalism flickering under curiosity. "Yes," I said calmly. "Everything's clear now. I've always been the reasonable one. And reasonable doesn't mean unobservant." My sister leaned closer. "Thank you again," she whispered like this was a favor I'd offered. "This means everything." "For who?" I asked. Her smile faltered just a touch. My mother stepped in. "Sweetheart, let's not do this here," she said, the same phrase she'd used my entire life whenever timing threatened control. "We can talk later." "No," I replied. "We can talk now." The agent straightened slightly, sensing a shift. A supervisor hovered a few steps away, watching with interest that was no longer subtle. "I paid for this trip," I said not loudly, but clearly enough to cut through the ambient noise. "I booked it. I didn't authorize a transfer to anyone else." My sister laughed once, sharp. "Don't be dramatic. Mom handled it." My mother's smile tightened. "I told you, it would be such a waste. And you weren't going to use it anymore." "That wasn't your decision," I said. Derek finally spoke. "We didn't mean." I raised a hand gently. "I'm talking to the person who changed the booking." The agent cleared her throat. "Ma'am," she said to my mother, "only the account holder can authorize changes of this nature." My mother bristled. I had permission. I looked at her. "From who?" The pause was brief but telling. The supervisor stepped closer. "Is there a dispute over payment authorization?" "Yes," I said. "There is." I felt eyes on us now. Travelers pretending not to stare, phones subtly lifted. The airport has a way of amplifying truth when it surfaces in public. My sister's voice dropped. "You're ruining everything." I met her gaze. "You already did." I just stopped pretending. The supervisor nodded. "We'll need to freeze the booking until this is resolved." My mother's face drained of color. "Freeze it." "That's standard procedure," he replied. I turned back to the agent. "Please proceed." The keyboard clicked again. The screen updated. And somewhere between the hum of departures and the sudden, panicked silence behind me, I realized this wasn't about a honeymoon anymore. It was about access. And for the first time it was being revoked. Security was called quietly, professionally, The way systems respond when something slips out of its expected lane. Two officers approached the counter without urgency, their presence calm but unmistakable. The supervisor explained the situation in clipped, neutral terms. Disputed authorization. Account holder present. Booking frozen pending verification. My sister's composure cracked first. "This is insane," she said, voice rising just enough to turn heads. "We're going to miss our flight." Derek shifted beside her, hands jammed into his pockets, eyes darting between my mother and the officers. He looked like someone who'd boarded a moving walkway without checking where it led. My mother took a step toward me. "Avery," she said softly, like we were in my childhood kitchen and she was about to explain something away. "You don't need to do this. We'll sort it out later." I've always been the reasonable one. The one who accepts later. The one who understands delays as compromise. "Later is how this happened," I replied. The officer nearest us asked my mother for identification. She bristled again, offended by the implication, but complied. The process slowed everything down exactly as intended. Time stretched. Boarding announcements echoed through the terminal, indifferent to family drama. My sister's phone buzzed repeatedly. She glanced at it, then shoved it back into her bag. "This is humiliating," she muttered. "People are staring. They're watching a dispute over unauthorized charges," the supervisor said evenly. "That's all." I stood still, passport resting on the counter, noticing how steady my hands felt. The noise of the airport receded into something manageable. I focused on details. The faint scuff on the counter edge, the smell of floor polish, the rhythm of keys tapping as the agent documented everything. A memory drifted in. My mother once telling me, "You're so good at handling things calmly. I don't know what I'd do without you." The praise had been warm. The access had been permanent. The officer finished checking my mother's ID and looked at me. "Ma'am, do you want to file a formal complaint?" "Yes," I said. Derek exhaled sharply. "Come on," he said, finally finding his voice. "This is going too far." I turned to him. "You're traveling on tickets that weren't given to you," I said. "That's not far. That's factual." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. He glanced at my sister, then at my mother, as if waiting for someone else to fix this. My sister stepped forward. "She agreed," she said quickly, pointing at my mother. "She told us it was fine." The officer's gaze followed her finger. "That's not the account holder." Silence followed, sharp and clean. My mother's shoulders sagged just slightly. "I was trying to help," she said, the words smaller now. "It was complicated." "Stealing access is not complicated," the supervisor replied. "It's documented." The boarding announcement for Bali sounded again. Final call. My sister's eyes filled, not with remorse but with panic. "You're ruining my life," she said, voice breaking. I felt the old instinct tug at me, the urge to soothe, to fix, to absorb the fallout so everyone else could keep moving forward. It was familiar. Comfortable. Dangerous. I've always been the reasonable one. This time reason meant stopping. "I didn't do this," I said quietly. "I noticed it." The officer handed me a form. I signed it. The pen felt cool, the motion deliberate. My name looked solid on the page. The supervisor nodded. "We'll restore the original booking to the account holder," he said. "Your flight will be reissued." My sister stared at him. "What about us?" "That will need to be resolved separately," he replied. The reality landed hard. My sister slumped into a chair, hands shaking. Derek stood frozen, the momentum that had carried him here evaporating in seconds. My mother looked older suddenly, the confidence she wore like armor slipping. Phones were out now. Not subtly. Someone whispered. Another recorded openly. "The airport doesn't hide disruption. It documents it." A reporter approached, press badge visible, curiosity sharpened by conflict. "Excuse me," she said to the supervisor. "Is there an issue with unauthorized ticket transfers?" The question changed everything. The supervisor gestured for her to step back, but the damage was done. Cameras lifted. Murmurs spread. The story had found a hook. I gathered my passport and boarding pass as the agent slid them back to me. "Your seat is confirmed," she said softly. I nodded. "Thank you." As I turned away, my mother called my name, not commanding, not soothing. "Afraid." "Avery," she said. "Please." I paused just long enough to meet her eyes. You taught me to be reasonable, I said. This is me using it. I walked towards security, the line opening naturally in front of me. Behind me, voices rose again. Arguments, explanations, the sound of plans collapsing under scrutiny. Ahead of me, the terminal stretched wide and bright, a place designed for departures. And for the first time since the microphone changed hands the night before, I knew exactly where I was going, and why. The gate area buzzed with that particular tension airports hold. Relief braided with impatience, departures stacked on top of goodbyes. I sat near the window with my carry-on at my feet, watching planes taxi in slow, deliberate arcs. The glass was cool against my shoulder. Somewhere behind me, a television murmured headlines I wasn't listening to yet. I boarded early. Not out of privilege, out of quiet. The flight attendant smiled, scanned my pass, and waved me through with the practiced kindness of someone who doesn't need to know your story to respect your space. I found my seat, stowed my bag, and buckled in. The cabin smelled like recycled air and citrus wipes. Ordinary. Safe. I've always been the reasonable one. I just hadn't realized how much that word had been doing to me. As the plane pushed back, my phone finally buzzed. A text from my mother, short this time. We didn't think you'd go this far. Another from my sister, all caps and broken sentences. I didn't respond. The runway lights blurred as we gathered speed, the ground giving way in a way that felt symbolic without being theatrical. Mid-flight, the news broke. A headline slid across the seatback screen. Airport dispute delays honeymoon departure. The clip was brief, grainy footage of a counter, a raised voice, a supervisor's calm explanation. No names at first. Just a dispute involving unauthorized changes to a booking. I watched it once, then turned the screen off. When we landed, Bali greeted us with heat that felt like a hand on my back, guiding me forward. The airport smelled like frangipani and jet fuel, sweetness layered over motion. Customs was efficient. My luggage arrived intact. The driver held a sign with my name spelled correctly. At the hotel, the lobby opened into a courtyard of water and stone, the sound of fountains threading through the air. The desk clerk welcomed me with a nod and handed over a key card. No questions. No commentary. Just confirmation. That night, alone on the balcony, I listened to insects hum and waves break somewhere beyond the trees. The moon hung low, pale and patient. I thought about the microphone. The smile. The plan that assumed my silence would carry it through. I slept. The next morning, sunlight poured across white linen and woke me gently. I ordered coffee and fruit and ate slowly, tasting things without distraction. Later, my phone lit up again, this time with my name attached to the story. The reporter had found it. The evening news would run the clip with context. I didn't watch. Instead, I went to the water. I let the ocean take the edge off my thoughts, salt and sound rearranging what mattered. I remembered my mother's smile at the reception and saw it clearly now, not as malice, but as entitlement dressed as care. I remembered Derek's relief when no one yelled and understood how momentum can masquerade as consent. By the time I returned to my room, messages had shifted in tone. Apologies arrived with qualifiers. Explanations asked for grace. My mother wrote that she'd only meant to help. My sister wrote that she'd never thought I'd actually say no. That was the truest thing she'd said. I replied once, to both of them. I didn't make a scene. I made a boundary. We can talk when that's respected. Then I set the phone aside and let the day continue without me carrying it. If you've ever been the one who smooths over moments so others can keep celebrating, you know how strange it feels to let a celebration move on without you fixing it. Some families call it flexibility. They mean access. Later, walking back along the beach, I passed a couple arguing softly in the sand, their words swallowed by wind and surf. I smiled, not at their conflict but at the way it stayed theirs. Mine no longer needed to be shared by default. The evening news aired that night. I caught a glimpse in the hotel bar. My name mentioned once carefully alongside phrases like account holder and standard procedure. No villains. No heroes. Just facts. I raised my glass of water and toasted them anyway. To facts. To noticing. To leaving. I didn't ruin a honeymoon. I reclaimed one. Boundaries change who travels with you.